Hey, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go discussion video. Okay, so I was perusing through the Silph Road Reddit and I came across a post that was incredibly disturbing. Basically, for the Lake Trio, it looks like any raid that you do remotely is going to have a drastically lower shiny rate. This is something that I really feel like Niantic should have disclosed, but they did not do so, and I do think it's a huge negative to the Pokemon Go community. I'm going to be talking about all of this in today's video, so let's roll the intro and get right into it. Alright, so in case you weren't aware, Niantic has been at war with one of the features that they themselves have released, and I'm of course talking about remote raids. Over the past couple of months, Niantic completely nerfed remote raiding in order to encourage more in-person raiding, and one of the ways that Niantic has done this is apparently by nerfing shiny rates for any remote raids. This was something that was recently discovered within the Silph Road Reddit. A lot of players were finding that getting shinies through remote raids was incredibly difficult, and a lot of players started looking into it. And what they ended up finding is that the shiny rate for remote raids seems to be at around 1 in 125, as opposed to the 1 in 20 from regular in-person raids. This is a drastic nerf that Niantic did not disclose to the Pokemon Go community, and considering that the Lake Trio is a set of legendary Pokemon that is also regionals, there's going to be a lot of players who will use remote raids to raid these Pokemon for their specific shinies, and to find out that the shiny rate is nerfed is really disheartening because it's not even like we could raid as many of these as we can. We have a limit of 5 per day. And on top of that, remote raids are incredibly expensive right now, so a lot of players are just feeding Niantic a whole bunch of Pokecoins in hopes of getting these shinies, and it turns out they're not even able to get them considering the abysmally low rate. So yeah, to better understand this, let's actually go over the Reddit post in question. So the title of this Reddit post reads, Lake Trio shiny rates from remote raids have been nerfed, according to crowdsourced data from Japanese websites. TLDR, Japanese players report Azelf and Mesprit raids, likely remote, had a much lower shiny rate than the expected 1 in 20. Doesn't seem to be RNG or reporting bias. The 9DB website is one of the most popular sources of Pokemon Go info in Japan. For most events, they run a crowdsourced shiny rate survey, where anyone can report their own data. Current shiny rate reports for Azelf and Mesprit, presumably mostly done from remote raids, are, for Azelf, 11 out of 1,390, which is a rate of about 0.79%, or 1 in 126. For Mesprit, it was 30 out of 1,926, which is a rate of about 1.56%, or 1 in 64. Now, could this be RNG? Almost impossible. Normally, legendaries should have a shiny rate of 1 in 20. However, if that was the case, both reports would only have a under 0.00001% chance of occurring. This means there's sufficient sample size to reject the hypothesis that their shiny rate is 1 in 20. Could it be biases in player reports? Very unlikely, at least not to this extreme. Even though 9DB allows everyone to report, which can cause many issues compared to TSR Research Group's controlled studies, most of their past shiny surveys ended up being pretty accurate, if not too high. There's a couple of examples that they go over, which I'm not necessarily going to get into, but note that several of these have a smaller sample size than Azelf and Mesprit. Another possible critique is that it's only been 5 days, and early reports may be filled with unlucky players. However, I'd argue what should have happened is the exact opposite, i.e., reports being biased too high initially. In theory, while you can have individual reports like 0 out of 5 or 0 out of 3, you should also have 1 out of 3 and 1 out of 5 from lucky players. If anything, unlucky players may raid for a bit longer before reporting. In practice, there have been precedents before where the 9DB data was biased too high at the start. For example, when Heracross was in raids, the observed shiny rate on 9DB changed from 1 out of 32 to 1 out of 64 over time. The same thing happened when Druddigon was first released in raids. The initial reports had 1 out of 33, when it's likely 1 out of 64. So yeah, this is just a bunch of data points for a website that is very similar to the Silph Road, but in general, this has been my own lived-in experience. For the last couple of days, I've been doing quite a few remote raids for both Uxie and Mesprit, specifically because I wanted their shinies, and Yeah, I have not picked up their shinies, even though I've been doing my 5 remote raids per day. So, Niantic, like, this is something you should have disclosed, because for someone like me, that would have given me some realistic expectations, and I wouldn't be dropping a whole bunch of Pokecoins on remote raid passes in order to raid these regional Pokemon. In a lot of ways, this feels kind of scummy, because a lot of players are spending money in order to get remote raid passes right now, and it seems like Niantic is not delivering on a lot of players' expectations, and they're doing a lot of these secret nerfs that I really feel like is going to go over really negatively with the Pokemon Go community as people discover it. I mean, seriously, like, people are already really upset with how they've been nerfing remote raid passes, but for them to nerf the shiny rate from remote raids, like, that is pretty bad. I really feel like a lot of players are going to be even more upset with Niantic at this point. Like, I understand that Niantic is making a lot of these decisions in order to encourage more in-person raiding, but when it comes to the Lake Trio, it's a little bit of a special case considering that they are regionals. The whole point of Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie is to encourage a lot more global interactions because they are regional. Whether through trades or whether through remote raid invites, like, there's supposed to be a lot more global activity with the Lake Trio, but instead of actually leaning into that, Niantic is trying to get us to do more in-person raids, again, through negative reinforcement as opposed to positive reinforcement. So, yeah, I'm really not in favor of this particular change. Like, if this is something that they're going to be doing moving forward, I'm not in favor of that. Like, I feel like the shiny rate is something that they should have kept in place. Like, yeah, you could limit remote raiding however way you want, but to nerf the shiny rate, that's actually going against player expectations. And, you know, you need to at least be transparent about that. Like, if you're going to be nerfing the shiny rate for remote raids, you have to let the players be aware of that. Like, at least just say that it's going to be more difficult to get shinies from remote raids, and that is a bit of info that players can go into remote raiding with. And yeah, they can temper their expectations accordingly. So, yeah, this is something I wanted to bring up because I know a lot of people are going to be talking about this, and I just kind of wanted to get ahead of the controversy because when it comes to Pokemon Go's rating scene, I feel like it's in a very negative place, and there's just a lot of work that Niantic needs to do in order to bring the game back into a good place, and I really think they are fully capable of doing that. My honest suggestion right now, do not do any remote raids for any of the Lake Trio Pokemon. Like, the value of your remote raid passes are just going down by the day, and for you to spend a whole bunch of Pokecoins to get Pokemon that you are likely not going to get, I think that is something you should try to hold off on. Like, using remote raid passes right now is completely worthless in my opinion. Like, yeah, you might end up getting yourself a shiny Uxie or a shiny Mesprit if you're in the United States, or a shiny Azelf if you're everywhere else in the world. Like, yeah, that could be exciting, but the rate at which you get it is just extremely low, so the realistic chances of that happening is also really low. So, I just really do not think it's worth the Pokecoins, honestly speaking. Like, eventually Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie will be available to you in some way, and I just do not think it's worth just cranking out a lot of money and just feeding in a lot of money for these particular shiny Pokemon. They're not even meta relevant, so I really do not see the point of spending so much money on remote raids in order to get these Pokemon. And I know I'm at fault for this because I was doing a whole bunch of remote raids, but now that I am informed about the shiny rate being so low, I am definitely not going to be doing any more remote raids while this is all going on. But in any case, yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I would love to know your thoughts regarding this change down below. Are you unhappy about it as I am? Definitely share why in the comments, and let's have a great discussion. And if you ended up enjoying this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then do consider checking out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.